Good evening. Welcome to all to this meeting of the Scrutiny Value for Money Council Committee on Wednesday, the 9th of April 2025. Item 1, to receive apologies of absence. Emily? Thank you. And item 2, declaration of interest, if any. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Okay, thank you. Item, excuse me. Item 3, to consider any urgent business brought forward to the meeting under Rule 12. I'm not aware of any urgent business for consideration at this meeting. So we move to item 4, questions from the public. Again, we've not received any questions from members of the public. Item 5, questions from members of the committee. And once again, we've not received any questions from members of the committee. Item 6, which are public minutes of the previous meeting on the 15th of January 2025. I propose the approval of the public minutes from the previous meeting. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Krupski, P. Krupski. We'll now go to the vote. All those for? Any against? And that's passed. Thank you. Vote is carried. Item 7, the Scrutiny Review Programme update. I invite Sean to provide us with an update.
Chair, I can't hear it. I can't hear anything, Chair.
Oh, sorry, apologies. I was having microphone issues. I'll start again.
Thank you.
In September 2024, the committee agreed to undertake a review regarding value for money of the Civic Function Suite at Burton Town Hall. All members of the committee are taking part in this review, and as such, no subgroup has been set up. There have been various meetings of the committee over the past few months, which included a Q&A session with the manager of the Civic Function Suite. The Scrutiny Support Officer has been busy gathering and analysing data for the committee, providing this within sections on the member intranet, which will assist committee members in their role to scrutinise. We've commenced adding this information to the report under the headings in the scoping paper. The committee now need to meet and discuss their respective findings alongside this, helping produce a report to Cabinet later this year in approximately July of 2025. There's also some future reviews on the committee's programme for this year, including CCTV cost effectiveness, amongst others. This is all supported with the introduction of the Council's Scrutiny Handbook as referenced in the recent member briefings. And I'll hand back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. I invite any questions. Do any members have any questions at all? No? Okay. In that case, we'll move on to item 8, public executive decision records. A list of public executive decisions have been circulated with the agenda. Does anyone have any questions on any of these? No? Okay.
Yes, Chair, if I may.
Okay, Councillor Sankey. Over to you.
Thank you very much. It's a straight one. The NNDR one, I noticed it refers to a policy one and it doesn't have any finance data in it. So I assume there's no financial implications to the council. I understand. I just wanted to confirm that, if I may. Sorry, I can't see if the 151 officer is present or not.
No, he's not.
All right.
So
okay.
We'll We'll,
It was just that there's no reference to that. And my reading of it was that there was no financial. I just wanted confirmation, if I may, Chair.
okay, what we'll do is we'll take that away and get that information.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
So if we can move on to item 9, date of the next meeting will be Wednesday, the 2nd of July, 2025. Hopefully we can all make it on that date. Item 10, the review of business rate support for charitable organisations. I now invite Matthew, the Revenues, Benefits and Customer Contact Manager, to present the report. Matthew.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, change glasses. So, following a request for information from the committee, the report seeks to provide an overview of the business rates reliefs that are available to charities within the borough and the details of the levels of support that have been provided historically. In summary, there are 3 types of relief available to charities: mandatory relief, which allows charities to apply to government for an 80% discount on their business rates bill, and this relief is funded by the government and not by the authority. Discretionary relief, where the mandatory relief has been granted to charities, they're also able to apply to the local council for a discretionary relief for the remaining 20% of their business rates bill. As this is discretionary, if awarded and funded, it's a cost to the local authority, and given that financial impact, each authority develops its own policy to confirm the information it will consider when determining an award. With East Staffordshire Borough Council policy being clear that when determining whether or not to make an award, it needs to determine the organisation's activities are consistent with the council's overall aims and objectives, and to also take into account the organisation's ability to utilise its current assets and funds to pay its remaining business rates bill. The third relief is small business rates relief. This is where organisations do not meet the government requirements for mandatory relief or the authority's requirements for discretionary relief, for example where it is clear that the organisation has significant resources that it could utilise to fund the remaining business rates bill. They may still be able to qualify for a small business rates relief. As such, there have been instances over the last 4 years where local authorities chose not to support discretionary rates relief and instead invited businesses to apply for the small business rates relief. However, from 24-25, the government have now updated the National Business Rate Framework to provide clarity where the organisation would be eligible for mandatory relief. They must claim that first, and once awarded, they cannot subsequently apply for a small business rates relief. In terms of the support provided historically, this is set out in Table 4.1 with information showing that mandatory relief continued to rise across the period. And in terms of discretionary relief, while the table highlights the impact of the pandemic on processing these claims during 2021-22 and 22-23 financial years, with business rates resources having to be diverted to administering national business rate support schemes provided by the government, meaning a significant number of discretionary rates reliefs relating to 2021-22 were not processed until 22-23. But adjusting for the timing impacts of that, costs have also risen across the 4-year period. It should also be noted that whilst there have historically been delays in processing requests in this area, as above due to the impact of the pandemic and the reallocation of resources, there are no current delays or organisations currently waiting for a decision to be made. Finally, Section 5 details the new changes relating to private schools in England, where a number of charitable status around half, the government suggests that around half apply to private schools in England and have historically been able to choose to claim mandatory business rates relief and discretionary relief. The government has now updated the National Business Rate Framework to remove the ability for private schools to claim these reliefs from the 1st of April 2025, and we are aware of one organisation within the borough which will affect this change. I'll stop there, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, dear Matthew, for a very in-depth response. Do we have any questions for Matthew?
Yes, Chair, if I may.
Councillor, thank you.
Thank you. First of all, can I thank you for the very thorough report? I found it very, very informative and interesting. Uh, the one thing I was interested in was the item. What my issue was concerned about what was happening to charitable organisations over the years. Were they still getting the full support? And when I mean the full support, I was talking about the government plus ourselves. So were the charities losing out overall? And one of the comments I'd like to sort of explore is at the end of section 3.5, you say, as such, whilst we did see a reduction in discretionary rates costs in 23-24 and 24-25, more support is again being requested, but that doesn't necessarily mean being given. So what was the reason for the drop in discretionary in 23-24 and 24-25? Just to explain that one, please. My first question.
Yeah, the drop in discretionary was we were able to divert them to the small business rates relief. So they were getting the mandatory relief and the small business rate relief, and therefore the council was not implicated in a financial sense to that.
And have we done any work to say what the total cost that these small charities got compared to previous years, so that they were not out of pocket because I noticed that the government has changed the rules a little bit over the last few years. So are these small charities still getting the support from, want of a better word, the government and local authority sector? Have we done any work on that?
All I can sort of refer back to is the report and the increasing volume of support that's being provided.
So we don't actually know if the total amount that each... I understand it will go up anyway because the cost of living, inflation will automatically cause it to rise anyway. But we haven't got any stats on, for the sake of argument, are 100 charities, that small charities in the borough, are they still getting the same level of support in this rates area? Is that what you're saying? We haven't got that information.
We haven't gone down to that individual level, but obviously all those organisations will have changes to their makeup. So comparing it 4 years ago to now would be very difficult, understanding, you know, where they are in the marketplace, what they're doing, how their business has changed. So the factors with regard to the relief that they would be offered would change significantly depending on how they were operating.
I understand that, but I mean, as a percentage of the, I mean, because with the mandatory and the discretionary, a lot of them were getting 100% relief, weren't they? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So have we got any figures of how many have got 100% relief each year? So that, you know, previous years they were all getting 100%, or a lot of them were getting 100%. Are they still all getting 100%?
Well, we would be able to give you the number of ones that are getting 100%, but it, as I said before, it might not be reflective.
Okay,
so it could have dropped
yeah,
because they're no longer eligible for the discretionary part of the relief because they've got financial means to support themselves. So
yes, I understand that the sort of the general things change, and you know, I mean, I was looking at things like scout groups and boxing clubs and various things like that. That broadly, that their financial positions don't greatly change year on year. They may get an additional benefit, but broadly, there's a lot of small charities that tick over and are reliant on this. And I was just trying to get a picture of whether the numbers are still in that sort of broad park of getting 100%.
As far as I'm aware, we're not taking any of these organisations to court for non-payment. So they're either able to pay for it themselves or they are getting the relief.
Yeah, not taking them to payment is different than actually them getting the relief and they having to cut back on other areas of things that they're doing. And I understand the difference between that. Do you have a list of how many have got 100% on each of the years? I'm trying to ask for information that's not too onerous on the finance side because I'm conscious of how much work you've got.
I'd have to look at how the reports are coming off and how we do that, but we would know, but there may have to be some officer time spent pulling that information out.
Yeah, Chair, if I may suggest, if it's a small amount of officer time, I clearly don't want to divert the finance department doing lots of work, but it would be helpful to see if we are still, we are still giving them the 100% support that we were each year. We don't. I just feel that I'd like to know that when it's not diminishing as a result of the various changes of the way the government and local authority structures are changing.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. My point would be that, as Matthew's indicated, circumstances of charities change, and they change on an annual basis. That does include boxing clubs and things like Cubs and Scouts organisations. And I think we've spent quite a bit of time already in terms of officer putting together the report. Just Matthew, top of your head, I don't know whether you'll be able to answer this question. In terms of man hours, officers' man hours, how much time do you think this would take to take it a step further?
It would depend on how the system and the system reporting. So I can't really say if the system can report it, it would just be a quick report. But I just wanted to come back because perhaps what I didn't say, with the way the economy has changed over the last 4 years, there's going to be an awful lot of organisations that were qualifying that are no longer actually operating. So the figure won't provide you with any sort of meaningful stat because there will be a difference in the numbers to start with, and all I'd be able to look at is the number that were getting 100% 4 years ago and the number that are getting 100% now, and that I don't think will represent what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think, Councillor Sankey, what we've got here is a moving beast, and I think it's going to be very difficult to get to the answer that you want, which is quite a finite, definitive answer.
Okay, Chair. I was just trying to, because I genuinely think that there are some that are not getting it. But if we can only go so far, we can only go so far. I feel that some of our charities are losing out. But if we accept, I accept that there's a finite resource constraint. So I will leave it at that then.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Shrive.
How many people were turned down that weren't accepted for the discretionary funding and not moved on to the small business? Are you saying that people that applied for it and were within the criteria, they all got it?
If they've met the criteria, I mean, on the last page of the report, it does say that the not supported, there was 9 in 21-22, 12 in 22-23, a lot more in 23-24, 43, but that was because we directed a lot to the small business rates relief, and then 1 in 24-25. So there isn't a large-scale rejection.
So they were all moved on to other places.
We will find them the relief that's most appropriate to them and is of least cost to the authority.
Things change.
Yeah, the government changed these rules because people get used to them and then they start to changed the way they operate in order to meet certain criteria, so the government has to change the post again. So it's always a moving feast with these sorts of things.
So you're not necessarily offering less support, it's just the criteria may have changed.
Yes,
for
absolutely.
some businesses.
Yes. And I think on the last page it shows that we rarely turn them down.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Matthew. I don't know whether you'd like to stay for the rest, but if not, I'm sure you've got other things
I've
you'd
got
like
a long
to be
drive
doing.
home, so I would like to go.
Thank you very much indeed for your input. Thank you. I'll now move to item 11, Quarter 3 Performance Report 24-25, Corporate Plan, and now I invite Sean to provide us the performance report.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the Quarter 3 Performance Report, looking at the Council's progress towards achieving its corporate priorities between October and December of the last financial year, along with the latest updates of the leisure contract and the Towns Fund programme. Beginning with the corporate plan, each target has been graded using red, amber, green ratings, depending on the progress of each individual indicator. Of the 96 live targets, this equates to 90.63% in green, 2.08% in amber, and 7.29% in red. Table 1 tracks the progress across the last 3 quarters, and the tables on pages 7 and 8 of the covering report show further detail on how these percentages break down across each of the corporate priorities as well as the individual cabinet portfolios. The red and amber targets are detailed in the tables you can see on pages 9 through 12 of the report, and Appendix 1 includes a detailed overview of all indicators in the corporate plan. These include comments to provide further context around the situation with each of those indicators. The report goes on to provide information on the performance of the leisure contract, which you'll find in Section 6. This remains positive with 77 green, 1 amber and 0 red indicators. Section 7 of the report summarises the progress for the Burton-upon-Trent Towns Fund programme, which details the partner projects which are currently on track or completed with a positive RAG rating for delivery, spend and risk on each of those. So that concludes the summary of the Q3 performance. If there's any questions, I can try and answer them or take them back. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Sean. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Cripps?
No, thank you.
Sorry, can I take Councillor Krupski? I didn't, as you're on Zoom, I didn't see you, Councillor. Thank you, so my apologies. If I could take you second, on the second, Councillor Krupski.
Just looking at the overall spreadsheet here, there's quite a few projects which are either falling behind, danger of falling behind, or off target. Are a lot of these related to a shortage of financial support?
So are you talking about the targets that are on the pages sort of 9 to 12 of the report, yeah?
It's just 2024 to 25 corporate plan reporting spreadsheet.
Okay. So obviously some of the targets that are in there, I think it's about 8 or 9 that are sort of off target or behind schedule at the moment. I think there will be certain aspects of financial support with some of them, but what I can do is take each one individually and go back to each service manager and get a response on that one. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Councillor Krupski. Councillor Sankey.
Thank you. Councillor Cripsey actually has raised the same point as myself, so thank you for that. No other comments.
Okay, thank you. Of course you can. Sorry, my apologies. Councillor Mansfield.
Yeah, no, I believe it is coming from county, but we can chase up and get a response. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have now 4 items considered in private. So I will now move that in accordance with section 100, open bracket, A close bracket, open bracket 4, close bracket, of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting, as it's likely, in view of the nature of the business to be transacted or the nature of the proceedings, that there would be disclosed exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act indicated in brackets before each item number on the agenda. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mansfield. We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimously carried. I'll now wait for the member.